Hello and welcome to Salesforce, a place where we talk about sales strategies, marketing development ideas, lead generation tactics, everything whatever help us to get our business from where we are today to where we want to be in the next couple of months or years. And for those who don't know me, my name is Alex. I'm running a sales augmentation team. We specialize in business development and basically helping others to accelerate their growth. So today, we're going to focus on some real life strategies that focus on lead generation, things that actually work in current environment, which is becoming highly saturated by AI, large language models. So some things are coming new, some things are working and they work forever. But you know what? I have today an amazing co-host, Michelle Letho. Michelle is an absolute powerhouse in the sales and growth area. She runs a team in CPrime Elabor8, which is a Goldman Sachs company, spearheading the operations in Asia Pacific for an Atlassian license and growth practice. So as you know, it's a highly competitive, highly consultative environment as well. And you know what? Michelle promised to share some real life scenarios and ideas what work for them. And hopefully can work for all of us as well. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. What an intro. Thank you, Alex.
Oh,
Equally, I just want to shine a light on you and your experience, particularly with outsourced sales teams. I think that our listeners would be really keen to learn a little bit more about how to manage with outsourced consultants, particularly in other countries. Hopefully throughout this discussion or over the course of our series, you can shed some light on tips in that regard too.
we'll try to, yeah. But, overall, it's quite an interesting topic because no matter how much experience you have and no matter how long we've been operating in the field, the things that's constantly changing the way it feels, right? And especially the pace looks to accelerate in the last few years. But yeah, what are your thoughts today about the business development environment overall? Did it become harder to generate leads? I mean, what works for you? Yeah.
Oh, look, I've got a couple of top tips. I think that you touched on a point in that it is a very VUCA environment. It's very
Yeah.
volatile. It's always changing, and like anything, you have to stay on top of new trends, new software, um, new social impacts. So it's not easy. It's not an easy science. And I think every business is wanting more growth, is wanting more sales. So there's more people that are entering the space. So from an inbox perspective or a message box,
Oh, yeah.
you would know yourself that you're getting more and more cold calls, and it's people are more discerning about their data, their privacy, their time. So I guess how you stand out and how you are relevant is extremely important. And I think the probably
Totally
my
agree.
number one irk as a consumer is when I had a cold call just an hour or so ago. It's from a charity that I've donated to many times, and she didn't pause for air. She didn't give me a chance to say, "Hey, this is not a great time right now." She just went, and it took about a minute and a half. I had her on loudspeaker while I was still doing something, and because it was a charity I do support, I didn't hang up on her. But it's really important to work with your audience to understand their pain points or their levers, but to personalize things. To her credit, she did talk about my past donation history. um,
Okay,
but
that's it.
um,
That's it. That's some
but
personalization there.
yeah, but I guess everyone wants to feel like you're a human. And the number one thing about business development for me is I authentically really enjoy helping people. I really enjoy understanding their goals or trying to highlight an opportunity to help them achieve their goals. So I'm one of those sick puppies who really, really loves communicating with people. So I'm so sick that you put me in a room full of strangers at a meetup or a networking event, and I am in my element, because I really like understanding people's stories, what makes them tick. And I think it's really important to not just be so focused on the sale that you forget about the person on the other end and who you're communicating with, and trying to make a connection, an actual genuine connection on the other end.
That's true. I couldn't agree more, right? And it's from one side, it's quite interesting whenever you're operating in this business development space and you quite, I mean, cold calling is basically it's our day-to-day activity. So sometimes, I don't know how, but I'm really like to answer those calls. Sometimes whenever even I can see it's okay, it's a possible spam. I mean, I would really answer, and I would try and listen and give a chance and kind of measure and trying to see what are the new tactics there. But yeah, the thing is, it looks like most of the time it's quite a disappointing experience. This is really no personalization. This is, you feel like someone is so stressed on the other side, really delivering the speech, working hard, already getting ready for rejection. So yeah, it's still, I think, I believe it's still one of the best channels to get through, right? But the skill set is it's quite hard to develop, right? Especially when I think business development reps, they're trying to get the shortcuts, leveraging AI, sending highly personalized, what we call messages. I saw you this, I saw you that. Before it was only the first name and the last name and the company name, but now they start utilizing bots to do kind of more personalized activities. It doesn't really look that personalized whenever they land in your mailbox, right?
Yeah. So I mean, the message, like understanding who it is that you're targeting, is like the homework that you do before you actually get on whether it's whatever your medium is, but however your outreach is going to be, understanding who it is that you're speaking to and what drives them and why they would want. Who cares? Like, do they care? Why would they care? How can you make them care? Um,
No one
it's
cares. That's true. Yeah, yeah.
it's
And then yeah,
it's really.
you said how you're in the room, right, full of people, and you're really focusing on not focusing on the sales, but really helping people, right? But I think this is actually a very hard skill. It's not quite natural, because sometimes there's this salespeople, business development managers, they have these hardcore targets, right? They need to feel lots of pressure from their management team, lots of pressure, financial pressure as well, on a
Mhm,
quarterly,
mhm,
monthly basis. So
mhm,
sometimes it's really hard to detach from a sale, right? So, and this, but on the other side, whenever you attach to this, right, the other person feels it. They feel it's not genuine. They feel they're getting through the structure, and the structure is sometimes so similar.
mhm.
Qualification, pain points. What happens if you don't solve this? Like, and that's kind of creates mistrust, I believe, right on the other side, and that's actually breaks what we doing this for, really helping people. So it's more really trying to
Uh,
change the environment around us.
Yeah, I 100% agree. There's nothing worse than me saying, "Oh, Alex, have you heard about my solar panel, government rebate?" And
Yeah, the best of the best. Yeah.
that that they're actually reading from a script, or "Dear insert name," and it is of no relevance to me, or never would be of relevance to me. Like, it's frustrating because you have to spend the time actually deleting that email or message. And
That's right. That's right. We're so time poor right now. Even to make a click and delete it, it's so frustrating. I was actually sitting for the last 2 hours trying to clean my mailbox and unsubscribe from hundreds of emails, because I found if I'm not looking at my mailbox for 2 hours, I have 50 emails there, and it's just crazy. It's really really hard. The
yeah,
the noise
it
is just, yeah, it's getting unbearable.
It is. So recently I was attending an event, and wanting to invite some key clients to that event, and we tried multiple mediums. We knew who our intended audience was. Some were warm, some were cold, some were a little bit in the middle. But the best responses I got, despite sending emails, that it was a very professional email, had some
Yeah.
nice graphics and explained how this event would help people. They'd had the email and some follow-ups for a number of weeks.
Of course.
The best responses I got, though, is I tried to do one every morning for a couple of weeks, where I'd actually look at someone's profile and I get an understanding of the kinds of things that they were commenting on, or the initiatives that their business was posting about, or was, I'd sometimes just Google what was happening with their organization, and how or if our event was, relevant to them on a deeper level, apart from their role and the kind of company that they were in. And in spending the time in crafting a beautiful message, well, I thought it was beautiful anyway, but
I'm sure
a
it was. Yeah.
personalized message. And also just genuinely, it was, it'd be really great to connect and to understand what's important to you, in general. I got about a 3 out of 4 response rate on
That's
via
amazing.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it actually took a time investment. So I guess it comes down to this question over quality versus quantity. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there's also this time, and the real challenge that you mentioned is that we're salespeople and we have a goal, but at the same time, because of the influx of marketing people are getting, and they're really guarded and precious about their time investment, that unless you actually are sincere and you've actually made an effort to connect with that person, you're not going to cut through. So it's a very fine balance.
No, I totally agree with you, and I'm really with you on this, because I remember myself even with the in the sunrise of my career when I just joined the B2B IT sales space. I was started as a business development rep, and you can hear my accent right now. It's quite thick and rich still, after all these years spent here. But back then, you should hear this, right? But I was quite eager, joined a very big company, started as a business development rep there, and my approach was there. I realized quite quickly, if I'm making many calls, unpersonalized messages, and again with my accent as well, people really struggle. They were very nice to listen to me for half an hour, 5 minutes, giving me the chance, who is this weird guy talking to us? But then I found my way really was the best way to approach is to research, read annual reports, finding what the CEOs are talking about, their plans, right? And really spending this time to personalize the messages, so I could send 10, 20 a day, right? But I was the success rate was phenomenal. And basically, even back then, having 5 or 6 team members around in the business development team, yeah, always somehow managed to outperform the others, just utilizing this strategic approach. And I think, kind of reflecting on that as well, in a modern environment as well, there's more focus on do more, reach out to more people with smarter tools, AI personalization, just bigger databases, with people trying to utilize LinkedIn automation, email automation. Right now, they're talking about AI making calls, but quality, it feels like it's still, it always was kind of quality versus quantity. But nowadays, I think it's even more important, because people trying to realize in email, they see personalized email sometimes, and they see it through, right? So it's still
Yeah.
a very big difference between
And
making the research, being genuine, looking at different sources. Maybe AI will pick up one day, but still, I think this is the most, uh, um, this is the best way to get through and get some attention. Like, and the rate you replied, 4 emails, 3 emails response rate. This is, yeah, that's definitely paying off the effort.
yeah, I think when we see an AI created message, it's so vanilla. Like it
I hope you're
like
doing well. That's always starts with you see this one. This is alert, I hope you're doing well.
yeah. I hope you do. Yeah, and a peer gave some advice that if they had $100 for every word that you didn't include in a message, would you rewrite your text, for example? And I had to really think about that and ponder on that because I hope you're doing well. Firstly, you don't know this person. So, and they don't know you. So it's not very genuine or authentic to say, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Hope this message finds you well, because you really don't care and neither do they. And they know that. So that is, hope you are doing well. That's $500.
Less is more, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Less
the
is
thing
more.
is, I think the problem is this because people, whenever they're short on time, they just fall into these familiar patterns, right? Because it's very fast, I hope you're doing well. How are you? How are you doing? Just following up, just touching base, just reaching out. This is standard wording, right? Which is kind of engraved in a junior sales mind, and we sometimes carry this through our career because it's just so fast. It's automatic, right? We just turning on the sales mode, and those words popping out. But so you need to have time, review your email a couple of times, and then you need time to write a really nice, short, straight to the point email, right? AI
Yeah.
helps, a bit, as long as you're good with prompting. So this can speed up a bit the process. So this is one of my hacks. And really, whenever I write an email, and obviously, then it takes me probably around 5 to 6 minutes to shorten this with the help of additional tools. But it's better than doing this myself. That's kind of, at least it can be done at scale. So tell me, Michelle, so this is quite important, like personalization, not being attached to the sale. But how do you train team members? Is it natural gift? Do you need to born with the skills? So there is a way to somehow bring in the person and train? And how long would it take, do you think?
Great question. Um, there's so many ways to answer that question, but in terms of, I think it's a skill that can be learned. I think that inherently some people are better at it than others, but I think, like most things, it's a skill that can be learned. But in terms of honing the skill, we have the ability to record some of our calls with client permission, of course, but it's always good I think, for your team or for yourself to self-reflect. It's it's a bit awkward sometimes to play back and hear
Very
yourself.
awkward, very awkward, especially hearing yourself, looking at yourself. Yeah, you need, but it's important, right? Because this is the way to get better. And I think it's one of the reasons it's awkward because we don't like sometimes what we see, right? And that's
Yes.
exactly the reason to look at this once again, listen, train, and get
Yeah,
better.
and we need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable because that's how we grow. So, reflection is the first step towards learning and iteration. So, my team, we're always talking about how can we be 1% better? Like, what did we learn from what we did yesterday or today, what worked, what didn't work, what are we going to do differently, for example. So I think listening to yourself or self-reflection after a call on what worked and what didn't work is really important. But the next step in terms of identifying, articulating, communicating, or writing down what it is that you've actually learned is so important. So I was on a call yesterday, and
Yeah.
it was the first time we've done this particular this type of call, this particular product line, and I had a step-by-step guide on how I would approach it differently next time. So it was fantastic because much like anything, the first pancake is always the one that gets thrown out. It is the dud. You've got to start somewhere and you've got to learn. So unless you kind of put yourself out there and start, and even when you get good at it, sometimes you get complacent. And it's sometimes good to pair with someone else on a call so that you can swap feedback. You can
Hmm.
have someone else give you feedback as well, or otherwise that recording. And there is some software that will also prompt you in terms of like a backlog and history of calls that have been done. So, oh, actually, you didn't ask this question. Maybe next time you can ask this question, or you spoke for 70% of the call. So you're like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't speak so much and give like the customer more time to speak, for example.
It's a
So
classic. Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's because like there's one perception that salesperson is this is the one who is a sweet talker, speaks a lot, can sell an ice to an Eskimos, right? But the idea is you need to listen, you need to ask questions, you need to reflect, you need to understand how can you help, right? Because eventually, yeah, speaking too much it doesn't really help. And so, in saying that, right, I mean, it's highly important to be personalized. It's important to stand out and make the research. And from your experience this day, I mean, that typically different channels how you can deliver the message, which is could be over the phone, over the
Hmm.
email. I mean,
Hmm.
LinkedIn, if people both, I mean, some people use text. I don't know, Twitter. I mean, never use Twitter myself, but I heard there's a technique like that. So, what in your space, right, operating in a consultative space, really, where do you see higher success rates? Is one channel stands out from another? Can you spot any
I
patterns?
think firstly you've got to think about the persona, like who is it that you're targeting, and you've got to meet them where they're at. So, for example, in a past role, our audience was the leadership team of primary schools. What I discovered is they hate social media. They don't read emails. There's a gatekeeper to any emails or phone calls. So the best way to get hold of them, I would cold call visit and sit in receptions, for example.
Really?
And
Wow. Door
yeah,
knocking.
door knocking, and I would befriend the receptionist who was the gatekeeper, and I would also just listen and observe and watch what was going on in the front office. I would read newsletters from the local school to understand what was going on. We participated in principal conferences. We tried to, where possible, we had speaking engagements at their local like conferences. So, like for example, if I tried to call that principal, I wouldn't get through. But if I aimed it at the gatekeeper, who was the administration or receptionist, and targeted that way, I might have a shot. But you really had to stand out. So, like the
Of course,
first
it's a very
time,
tough market. Yeah.
really tough market. So, with that particular persona space, we were targeting facilities management, and the key period was school holidays. So the first Easter eggs that went out, which was months before Easter, it was barely Christmas was over. We'd gone out and purchased Easter eggs and had like buckets of like packages of Easter eggs that we dropped off to people that shocked them that we were talking about Easter, because we were highlighting that they needed to start planning now for the Easter holidays. So again, just different channels. But what we find generally in terms of technology sales is working is phone calls. I follow this lovely American. He's very loud and he's very hairy. He's got lots of facial hair. His name is Troy, and I follow him on LinkedIn. And one of his recent posts, which I just love, he says, "If you want to stand out, then you've got to get on the phone. But most salespeople won't." And he says that we're all lazy, because if we really wanted to make a difference and to stand out, then we would keep phoning. It can take up to 5 phone calls to catch someone at a time that they can actually speak to you. Um, but no one does it. We message, we LinkedIn message, we send an email, we SMS. But if you really want the sale, you have to stand out. So again, that may work for some
Absolutely.
personas, and it may work for different age groups. Perhaps younger generations aren't that comfortable on the phone, but there's
Look, I think you're right. I agree with you. You need first and foremost really understand who is the target persona, who you're trying to catch, who you're trying to speak to, and yeah, basically whenever you go on a hunt, if you can use this term, you need to understand what environment you should be in and adapt to it, right? And I like the way you said how you listen and set in this. Reception as well, just to understand what is going on, just really to get your head around how they think, how to get there. But
and
yeah,
I could do that because the size of the sale for that particular one, like, could be quite significant. Obviously, if it's a smaller sale, if it's,
Yeah, of
you
course.
know,
You're not going to each and every office, right? You need to have
yeah,
like because it's time consuming and it's always around time versus target, right? So it depends where you operate. But when I thought about this, like what you mentioned, like people prefer to fall into more convenient channels like LinkedIn, like emails as well. I think one of the reasons because on the call there is this fear of rejection. It's like fear of public speaking, right? Because whenever you send a message you might never hear from the person, right? I mean, it's not really you. You send
yeah.
something, you're not quite thinking it through. But whenever you make a call, it's an immediate response and reaction to who you are. It's highly like some people get this very
Sometimes.
personalized, right? I mean, oh, I remember myself started making the calls like there's so much stress out there. Yeah, so this
Yeah, it is.
resilience, it has to be built up. That's for sure.
Well, I think it's resilience, but it's also persistence because even when there's a web lead, so someone has taken the time to submit a web lead and they've asked you for some specific information about a product, often it's really hard to follow up with them. So perhaps they've sent information requests out to multiple companies. They've got a day job. Maybe this was a side project, whatever it might be. Actually, getting a response back from someone who sent a web lead can be quite challenging. So we call it internally, we call it the kapow approach, which is like a
Kapow.
1-2. Yeah, it's like a 1-2 approach, like punch. But it could be a 1-2-3 actually 1-2-3. So
Yeah.
it could be like multiple mediums on one day to know that you're serious. So I recently had this. I'd actually gotten onto the person and submitted a proposal early on, but then there'd been a pause in communication. So I called, left a voice message. I SMS'd as well because not everyone accesses their voicemail, and it's
I
easier for
mean,
them to
I don't know
see.
who does. I never listen to voicemails, right? It's really like just,
Well, someone
it's
said to
always so
me that
much time to go and listen. And, basically, if you want to tell me something, just drop me a text, right? That's the idea.
that's true. Someone said to me that their version of hell was listening back to all the voice messages they've ever left in their life. But some people do
Wow.
listen.
Yeah, that's a deep thought, deep reflection.
Yes, but some people do listen to them, but not everyone. So, a voicemail, an SMS, and then a follow up email. So I thought that that person was still not going to return my call, but after the kapow, then they came back with a time to meet. And again, if
Kapow.
I hadn't
Yeah.
have caught them, then what would be good is to follow up again the next day at a different time, and try and catch them again because they know that you've been calling. You've sent them an SMS, so they can kind of see it's you. Um,
Yeah, look, the
Consistency.
speed of response is super important because as soon as the person left a note on the website, right, filled up the form, the chances are that he left the form not in one place but in a few places as well. And the first who get to him, the fastest obviously gets the higher likelihood to capture his attention, to educate on the topic, and get a bit advanced in comparison to others. Yeah, this kapow, like I mean, I think it's like I also read this book. It was called combo approach, right? So whenever you just try someone, you send them a LinkedIn message, then a text, then a call, suddenly, wow, this face, name, okay, this is a real person. That's basically they give up
I,
and answer just to capture their attention. Yeah, I tried it a couple of times as well, and it works. It's quite disruptive. Yeah.
yeah, well, I had a like a supplier contact me, but I wasn't the right contact. I had no idea why they were contacting me, and they did a kapow on me. So they'd done a phone call, left an SMS, and it had a link in it. And so my
Oh,
guard was up because I was like, oh, links. There's been a lot
you,
of
you,
data.
you don't
Like,
click on links. Yeah.
but then there was an email. And so it was when I got all three that I thought, oh, this is actually genuine. And it's actually something that I hadn't really thought about is there's so much fraud going on that sometimes people are skeptical on whether you're legit or not. And
Of
so
course.
the kapow actually cemented that I wasn't a telemarketer with, from, a dodgy, like, trying to do harm, that I was actually committed and real.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think this type of environment might change in the near future because we know with the rise of AI right now, the AI can speak, the AI can send multiple messages, and the hacking attacks they growing quite fast as well. So probably people would stop linking, but so far it works and it always worked, right? I mean, up until this moment, it is still a very viable technique to capture the attention and get someone on the line and basically showing that you're a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, it's in interesting days we live in, like business development changes, but some of the good old techniques, picking up the phone, getting to the person, doing the research, and really showing that you care and focusing on what is there for them. Why should they listen to you? It shouldn't be around you. It should be around your product, your features, your other clients. As you said, no one really cares, right? It should be really you should grab the attention, be very personalized, and focus on the service being less attached on the end result on a sale. That's basically that. I think that's for me, those are this mixture for success that really helps to close
Yeah.
those deals eventually and help others, but it's a very hard skill, honestly. Yeah.
And yeah, as you said, it's a really fine balance as well, in terms of uh, being sales minded towards a goal and then not trying to be too like desperate, or like to not actually consider who it is that you're connecting to and how you can help them. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a really fine balance.
It's a fine balance. Yeah. Michelle, look, thanks for sharing. I mean, just to wrap it up, right? I mean, if you could give only one advice for a person who just enter this market, the sales churning wheel, working hard, trying to generate, hit those targets, but do it in a good I mean, what would you recommend? What was this one only advice to give maybe to younger yourself who just enter in the sales space?
Oh, I'm now transporting myself back to my first graduate role in sales, and it's about being authentic, to like finding a style that is authentically is authentic in and you feel comfortable with it, because I've yeah, you can follow scripts, um, but if it's really staggered or if it's not like sincere, it's just not going to cut through. So I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
there needs to
Yeah.
be a level of personalization and a level, yeah, you've got to be really comfortable with what you're doing. But I guess before that, I would say I am a home sewer. And you always measure twice and cut once. So I think it's really important to do your homework before you get into a sale. And then when you do, to be authentic when you're in there. And Alex, over to
Amazing.
you. I'll ask the same question back at you.
For me, all right. Look, I think I agree with you, right? But for me, sometimes it takes time to find this authenticity, right? Because when you're in a hotspot, right, and all the pressure, all eyes on you, all your internal fears coming out. So I think it's to stay open-minded and practice and not being, kind of working against this fear of rejection. We're just really okay. If you're not successful today, you're going to be successful tomorrow. Not focusing on the end result straight away, but as you mentioned, one day, 1%, one step at a time, just focusing on this end goal, where you're going to be in 1, 2 years, and taking it with an open mind, practicing, and yeah, getting through this to the moment, without losing your faith in yourself. 'Cause eventually, if you try hard, you get there.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. What a wonderful way to end our section, our segment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Michelle, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining, and we'll meet you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Alex.